Okay. Hello, everybody. I watched the end of Jan's broadcast, and seems like I have a very hard act to follow. Not that I didn't know that in advance. Apparently, he went unbeaten through his 2 hours, which is impressive as always, and he's probably much higher rated than I am. So really, I have no idea why I'm here. Yeah, I can't speak English either. Obviously, without these 3 hours in between the excellence of Jan, it would have been much better for him to just stream 7 hours straight. And I obviously do wish that on a friend, but instead of that, you get this mediocre and somewhat overlong stream in between two perfect Jan streams. Happy birthday, Chess24. This is a very nice occasion, and Facebook, being the ever-seeing eye that it is, reminded me of some Pinky and the Brain memes I posted when Chess24 went live all the way back when that happened in 2014. So that was nice. I briefly thought about revisiting those, but I mean, a grown-up person posting Pinky and the Brain pictures was kind of mildly embarrassing then, and I'm sort of I'm in my 5th decade now, so it's even more embarrassing now. So I'm not going to do that. But anyway, enough with the introductions. Let's play some chess, and I think because I signed up for 3 hours, I'll try to get as many high-profile or at least high-rated games in as possible in the first hour and a half, whilst I'm still not entirely brain dead. Today has not been a particularly good or easy day here, so I might be overestimating the time that I will need today to go from barely human to completely zombie, but that's what I will attempt. And I will switch the chat on on the other machine, so I will try to keep an eye on the chat. And I'm now, hang on a second now. Let me just get this set up in order so that I can maybe keep an eye on how the stream is looking as well. Although it probably eats bandwidth, so I maybe shouldn't do that. But I'll have this window minimized, but running somewhere. Just give me another 20 seconds to set this up, and I will be sort of ready-ish to play. Okay, that's all set up, and I have 65 challenges. I need to switch to another scene first, I think. Yeah, that's a bit better. So I have 65 challenges. That's a decent amount of challenges, and as I was speaking, it switched to 69, which is an even better number, obviously. Let's go. Yeah, please don't hex my stream by saying that the stream quality is excellent, because that obviously is what will happen. I think so, Evans Gambit. That is the hope, at least, that I will, depending on maybe some Bundesliga commitments, but even those are unclear, I'm hoping to do potentially maybe the entire thing. Hang on a second, this is not scrolling properly. Okay. So this is, and bishop c5 in particular is a horrible move. I made it sort of on autopilot. You're supposed to play queen b6 there. You really don't want to be playing bishop c5, bishop b7 here. The whole point of playing a6 and b5 in this line is to play, queen b6, and and apparently the stream is already lagging a bit. But I would very much appreciate sort of no false alarms on the whole lag front, because this is going to be sort of hard enough as it is without people saying it's lagging when it's not. Knight f6 might just outright lose to e5 here, but I'm hoping it doesn't, because I don't really have a choice anymore. I'll invest in another tempo to play bishop b7 here. If he gives me time to play castles here, I'm kind of alive, and it's a kind of a normal bishop c5, bishop b7 position, but I might just get completely crushed here. I mean, e5, knight h5 is my hope, and then g6, and sort of if I don't die in the next 5 moves, I will have a decent position, but that's not a given that I won't. Can I give an assessment of the Russians' chances in the candidates? The Russians have chances in the candidates. That's probably slightly what's the word I'm looking for? Bland. But I mean, the numbers are very much in our favor there, because there are 8 players in the candidates, and 3 of them are Russian, obviously. So quick math, as the as the saying goes. Yeah, this is... I'm not sure. I mean, e5 he was probably planning to take with the rook, and maybe I could have gone knight g7 there and pretended everything is fine, but I'm kind of... I'm opting for this instead. Mistakenly. I have a feeling mistakenly. I was kind of planning to take on d3, but now that I look at this position in more detail, it feels that this probably just loses. I'll do it anyway. And now maybe I can play f5. This is not a great position, but it might not be as horrible as all that. But once again, it's very, very tempo dependent. Like knight d4, knight takes f5 is a huge threat, but I'm kind of planning to regroup with knight g7, bishop f6, rook e8. If I get all of those moves in, I will be, well, as okay as I can be in this position. Are there chances more than 37.5%? I kind of, I don't want to blunder rook f5 somewhere, but I also don't want to go knight g7 too early. I don't know if it's a consideration at all. I kind of, like bishop f6 is the move I want to make the most, but I don't really want to allow rook takes f5. It's a bit annoying. Like, I want to make all those 3 moves, but I'm not sure in which order. I'm not sure rook f5 is very strong there, though. Let's do it this way. This way gives me an option, if he goes bishop h6, to not play knight g7. I still think knight g7 is probably the best move in that position, but at least it kind of keeps my options open. And if he takes on f5 there, I'm planning to take and then play queen g7 after he takes on h5, and then the queen comes to g6, I go rook a8, and yeah, I seem to be stabilizing. I am not anyone second in this candidates tournament. I am very much an interested observer and a commentator, obviously. Yeah, this is kind of the position I was aiming for, because now with the queen, maybe queen g4 was even stronger, but I like it on g6. If he goes rook e3 next move, I think f4 is fine. Maybe king h8 is also fine. Yeah, I don't think I need to correct myself here. I think this is still fine. King h8, rook g3 is awkward, though. But maybe bishop e5 is fine. f4 is probably fine. There's many options there. I kind of missed bishop h6. This shouldn't be all that good for him. This is a bit too fancy. Yeah, that's just a mistake, because after bishop d6 I kind of thought I can take on e6, but I cannot. Yeah, that was a very large misplay. I'm probably still okay, but yeah, that was completely unnecessary. Because now after knight d4 or knight c5 I might have to do something awkward. Yeah, there are still glitches in the matrix here. I mean, after rook e6 I will probably make a draw, but it's kind of sad. I mean, the whole rook a8 is, yeah, and I'm very annoyed by... I will probably try and correct this. I don't really want these green things on my screen. After queen g4, I'm kind of trying to figure out if I can be better after queen g4, but I'm not sure I can. Maybe I can, though. It's a weird position, because if he takes, I threaten rook f1 mate, and he probably has to go king g1, and then I have all the different ways of attacking the knight on d4, and also the knight on c3. And I'm hoping that some of those ways will allow me to pick up the pawn on e6, and then I should be better. But I'm not entirely convinced this actually works. And obviously, just going bishop g7 was a huge mistake. I could just take on c3 there and take on e6, but I didn't want to give up my proud bishop on g7. Let me just briefly check what's going on. Yeah, stream seems still... Yeah, queen e3 I thought was more or less impossible because of f4 and 3. I was kind of hoping to see this move because it felt to me like it's much weaker than queen takes g4. I understand he didn't want to trade queens, but this I thought was borderline resignable, and I still think that. So, yeah, a bit of a mistake there from Brain Boy, and the game is suddenly completely over. Yeah. Okay, so... No, board looks fine, I just don't like it giving me hints where my pieces can go. This is what I was... yeah, possible squares is... possible squares is just not... Yeah, let's... Yeah, probably keep out a promote. Yeah, everything else seems... Whoops, sorry. Everything else seems good, but I kind of really dislike possible squares. If you're listening, Brain Boy, your biggest mistake probably was to play queen e3 after queen g4. If you just take, and go king g1, I could see no easy way for me to convert from here, because if I go rook g6, you have bishop b5. And this position is far less clear than I originally wanted it to be. And also, yeah, I think you should be doing quite well somewhere around here, but you need to play very precisely. I'm not even sure what are the best moves here, but I think the whole exchange sacrifice is just not very good for white. You played well up to a point, and then I think in this position, as I mentioned, I mean, I can take on c3 and take on e6 simply. He takes, and plays something like queen g3 check, and he does have some compensation because, I mean, especially if he manages to stabilize with the knight on d4, and let's imagine I play queen g6, he goes, let's say, queen f2, and then I pass for 2 moves, and I make some nonsense moves like h6 and bishop a8, and he goes king h2, then he goes knight d4. There is definitely some positional compensation, but that's obviously what I should have done. Bishop c5. My bishop c5, yeah, bishop c5 is not a good move. Yeah, and I think if you start with queen g4 here, Brain Boy, it's a very good version of the normal bishop c5, bishop b7 for you, because the inclusion of knight c3 and b5 is something white should be very much happy about, because black never plays b5 very early. Okay, probably enough about the one game I just played. Let's play some more. Who dat? I have no idea who these people are. And they are exceedingly strong. It's a weird situation. I also don't know what this move is about, frankly, but I'll make it just the same. I've seen people play this. I don't really understand the idea, but I mean, when did that stop me? It's no reason not to play something if you don't understand why you're doing it, right? I think Magnus did this in Saudi against Rustam Kasimjanov. But I'm not sure. Once again, I'm not entirely sure this is the move order. And I think d6 is a bit of a concession, because now I'm getting what appears to me to be a very decent English attack type structure. In particular because black already played h6, which means castling kingside for him will be, well, difficult. Whereas for me, I think castling queenside in these structures is... Yeah, I'm not sure how, I mean, why I was so happy about this, but... let's pretend there is a reason for the happiness I feel. Yeah, Obviously, my opponent understands that he cannot castle kingside here, so he is making all the moves people generally make when finding themselves in that situation where you have to play with the king on e8. I quite like what my opponent is doing here, and I don't really like what I'm doing, but once again, those are the breaks. I'm kind of preparing g5. g5 will not really achieve very much with the king on e8, but that's still where, my expansion lies. I don't really have any other sensible plans. And I wouldn't be so hasty in my opponent's shoes for this trade. I don't think he needed that trade at all. I think that trade actually makes my life somewhat simpler, because now d5 I can always meet with e5, and in general his play becomes much slower. I still need to find a sensible plan, though. I mean, I can play g5, ask him the question. It's not going to be a lot if he just swaps and plays even something like king d7, but those positions tend to actually be quite annoying for black, because I can play rook h7 and if he castles long, the hope generally is to switch to the queen side, but there is also this little trick I have in this particular position, which might be quite strong, potentially. Because if he takes on g6, I have b3. And then I will take on e6 with great effect next move. I'm not really... whilst playing very strong players, I'm obviously not keeping as close an attention on chat as I maybe would have liked, but so far there seems not to have been, very much I missed. I am around 6'2", if that's the system you understand, or 190 if you are a proper person and use metric. I don't know why I decided to answer that completely inconsequential question, but that's what I'm going for here. Answering the ones I see is going to be the order of the day. Yeah, rook hf8 is probably the correct response. Although, it's still very awkward for him, because if he takes with rook b3, still kind of wins. Yeah, and e5 does save him some material, but leaves him with a position... Okay, this doesn't really save him material, this actually loses material. Talk candidates, says I'm tryharding. I have talked some candidates. Maybe not as much as you would like, considering the all caps message, but I have talked some candidates. The candidates are going to be incredibly strong and interesting this year. I have no idea who's going to win it. I tried figuring it out. I mean, I tried figuring out who I even feel is a favorite, and even that proved to be completely beyond me. So yeah, I'm just gonna watch and enjoy every moment of it. Yeah, I don't know why I'm going knight f6 here. Okay, but now I've gone knight f6. Let's try and do something. Let's try and not play the Italian that everybody is playing. It's a bit annoying, and you've seen it enough. Is Morozevich still playing? He is, well, mostly inactive, but I'm sure he plays a little bit, and he does some teaching in Moscow. You can find some info on that, I think, on Facebook. But I think he is mainly inactive these days, and he is very much into... I don't know if I should call it his new love, but he seems to be genuinely very interested in the world of Go. So I think that's where his attention is kind of focused these days. My plan was to reply to knight e4 with bishop g4, which I now realize is a blunder. Which is a bit unfortunate, because if I don't have enough bishop g4 in this position, my position is probably not that great. But maybe I can play knight b6. The point is, after knight e4, bishop g4, my opponent, who I think we can assume the gender here, she was probably going to play bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, and bishop takes h6, with knight f6 tricks to follow up. Knight b3 is also quite sensible, but I'm less threatened by this positioning of the knight. I will play b6. It's a bit of an ugly move, but I would like to be able to play bishop e6 later in the game at some point. And this move secures that square. I like knight e5. I missed knight f5, and I should have actually considered that before playing b6. b6 is probably not a great move. Yeah, this position is kind of going rapidly downhill from what I assumed was sort of very decent beginnings. Don't really like it anymore. None of my options seem particularly attractive. Hang on, I was planning to go bishop e6, knight d4, knight e3, but now I realize knight takes e6 is a move. Which is something I probably should have realized a bit faster, but I haven't. So there is that. And this is an extremely ugly move I really didn't want to make. I saw it existed, but like you badly don't want to make moves like this. It's not a good feeling. If she goes queen e2, the plan is to play bishop f5 and kind of harass her a little bit, try and find some good squares for my pieces. And bishop d2 is a move I was kind of... That was the biggest hope I had, because now e5 is hanging, and if she has to take on d3, this bishop on c4 was by far the best piece she had in the position, so... Yeah, I assumed it was Alexander Kostyniuk, but he doesn't really say in the profile, and assumptions like this are not always correct. People do take other people's handles. But generally speaking, on the internet, whenever you see chess queen with a Russian flag, it's a safe assumption it's Alexander Kostyniuk. Yeah. She still has to spend a tempo on protecting. Yeah, I'm not sure if b3 or a3 was better. I think maybe a3 was safer, because now I have this play against her queen side, hopefully. I mean, it kind of very much depends on whether a4 in this position is a move she can make. I could also play b5. I'm kind of planning to play b5 next move, but I could have done it immediately, which is something I completely ignored, which is not very bright on my part. But I will pretend this didn't happen. And now I think I'm just winning, because I will collect the entire queen side. And that should be more than enough. Okay. Going okay so far. Can I play a King's Gambit or some other one? At some point during the show, for sure. If I get white and my opponent complies, I can even maybe try this game. Although, against somebody rated 2606, I suspect it will not go well if I do it, but... when did we ever care about that? Okay, so... Probably not missing very much in chat. At least I didn't really see anything that required immediate attention. No, I don't think I ever was anywhere near 3,000, the real Svidler. It's kind of beyond me. Yeah, I played this with black, and I kind of liked this with black. I'm not sure why I'm so happy about this position with white, to be honest. I never really understood the kind of... I always got bad positions against these systems with black, but looking at it from the white side, I don't really understand what is so attractive about what white is doing here. I kind of briefly wanted to go f4 to go h5 next move, or maybe prompt h6, h5, but I think f4 kind of runs into knight f6, e5, knight g4, which might be quite decent. Yeah, and somewhere along the way I think my play was a bit too slow. Not entirely sure what I'm supposed to do here. Apparently, there are some bad news from our Bundesliga match that I really didn't want to hear. Okay, this covers the g4 square. It's still incredibly slow, and yeah, rook c8 followed by c5 will probably be a problem here that I need to find some kind of a solution for. Yeah, I'm not treating this at all well, to be honest. I'm kind of disliking most of my decisions this game. At least it's kind of a slowish game, so I can take time and kind of regroup. The thing to do probably is to admit my mistakes in castle kingside, but then why did I play h4? Like my decisions taken together make no sense at all. Very frustrating. And this generally is kind of horrible, but I really disliked the other options. Basically, the reason I'm doing this is that I really badly disliked everything else I could have done in that position, which sometimes is a valid reason. But black should be doing very well here, I think, objectively. So if somebody is reading this and can update me on the score in the Baden-Baden Bundesliga match, I'd really appreciate a quick update on that. I think I castle. I think I'm giving up on any pretense that there will be an opposite side castling in this game. It's just not going to happen. And I need to be prepared for all kinds of breaks. If my opponent goes before here, I can go knight d1. It's not a very beautiful square, but it's a square. No, this is not horrible, Kramnik students. Horrible is a very strong word, but I'm just not liking what I'm doing, is what I'm trying to say. Now this knight on d1, if I could somehow magically transpose it to c, I mean, go bishop f4, knight e3, knight c4, but I don't think I will ever have enough time for any of that. I think I asked my opponent a question about the open A file, though. Yeah, I was kind of hoping for this, because now I have a much better square for this bishop to prepare knight e3, and if he takes on c2, we can take, go bishop d3, and take on a5 next move. This actually makes my position a lot more harmonious, I think. Kind of important not to blunder something. I think I actually, maybe not, because bishop g7, bishop f8. Yeah, I was worried I blundered knight takes e4, knight takes f2 there. And this change of structure should in general be quite decent for me, because I get very good squares. I just need to watch out for knight d7, knight e5, but I will probably even play f3, f4 there to make sure that the knight on d... Yeah, that's another route altogether, which I kind of ignored. And bishop d4. Yeah, this is a good setup. I don't like playing knight f4 this early, because now I have g3, king g2 to follow up. I think he should have kept the knight on h5 for as long as possible because of bishop f1, and now I can drive this piece away. Yeah, this is a very large improvement for me, because now this knight is stuck. I have potentially unpinned my knight on f2, because bishop d4 would have been a very difficult pin to shake off. And now this move obviously still exists, but it no longer really pins anything. And I can even go knight d3. So that's a very large change compared to the other position. Black still has counterplay, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is, you know, very far from being in the bag or anything like that, but... And that is just a blunder. I should have gone... yeah, that's a horrible move. I missed knight takes g3 there in the end. I might still be okay, but I really should have started with bishop e2. There was no hurry with any of this. Luckily, maybe even still better, maybe even much better, but because the bishop on b7 is so horrible. It's surprisingly difficult to do anything about this bishop, so I'm kind of collecting here. Okay, so seems like we are -1 in the Bundesliga match, and Paco is probably not going to win a rook ending. I thought Najdic was completely winning. Hasn't Najdic won? That's slightly weird. I thought Najdic was totally crushing against a former Chess24 employee, Ilya Zaragatsky, a very, very nice kid. Well, not really. I mean, I call everybody kid by this point, I guess, but he's not really a kid. I should have taken on e7. Bishop d3 is just fancy play syndrome. I don't like this move, but I can sort of still correct my mistake by going bishop c4. And now we can just pick up this bishop on... What am... Oh my god, what did I just do? Yeah, yeah, this is still winning. Hooray for me. I did not see it when I was playing. I mean, seriously, this was not what I was planning. It's very nice, but it wasn't. That's just me getting, lucking out. Pure and simple. This is me lucking out and managing to correct what was clearly a blunder. Because knight takes a8 followed by d6 discovered check with, I think, winning on the spot. But, yeah. Sometimes you make a mistake and the position still provides for you, so to say. Yeah, FPS, FTW is right. Let me look for some. Yeah, we probably should get this out of the way as early as possible while I'm still playing okay. Because apparently I don't even have a very good... I mean, why even? I mean, he is 60 points higher rated than I am. Or she. But I mean, rook a8 is... people in chat seem to be impressed by that shot. But it's really... I mean, it's such a standard geometrical shot that... Like, if you don't see it, you feel slightly ashamed. Hey, Shelling Forward. Yeah. I am very, very far from being any kind of an expert on this. I mean, I've seen it played many a time, but I don't really understand what people are doing here. I really don't. Like, what is the point of this? I've seen people do this, I think. But what is the point of it is kind of beyond me. Yeah, I kind of want to go bishop knight b1 here. What am I doing? Yeah, this is gonna be a fun game. Like, why is this knight on a3? Peter, what are you doing with your life? Should go b3, knight c3. This is like, you know, somebody who is not very bright trying to ape hours of work done by smart people who actually looked at move orders and kind of deduced where pieces go and are now doing it for a reason. And here I am mindlessly trying to do the same things which make no sense in the position I'm doing them in. Embarrassing. Well, yeah, 91, but I think, first of all, I'm kind of vaguely recalling some Gelfand games in which you had knights on a3 and d3. And secondly, if I do nothing, if I kind of ignore the fact that I placed the knight on a3 and continue as if nothing happened, black will go knight e4, f5, and we'll have a stone wall in which, like, none of my pieces make any sense. So at least by doing this, I am, well, hopefully, trying to prevent my opponent from getting that kind of a stone wall. Yeah, I think this actually is the Gelfand game I'm referring. Pretty sure it is. Gelfand against somebody in Palma de Mallorca, the Grand Prix that we both played. and by both I mean both me and Boris. And I think he actually took on d5 and played knight b5 here, and who are we to argue with the wisdom of ages? Yeah, also not entirely sure if I'm supposed to be better here. I have a feeling maybe knight f4 was a mistake. Now that I think about it, knight takes d6, which was a move that I kind of preferred to knight f4, was actually possible. I thought it wasn't, but there was a tactical justification for it that I could have gone for. Yeah, this is going to be a weird position. I have no idea who is better and why here. Did he just call Gelfand old? He kinda did, yeah, shots fired. But that comes from a place of love, Spatry. Boris is one of my oldest and dearest friends on the circuit, and if I choose to call him old, it comes from a place of genuine fondness. And this is completely the wrong order, because now my pawn on e2 will be hanging. I should have played h3 first. And this is coming from a place of genuine badness, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I'm just not playing very well. Happy birthday to Sval. I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, if I understand the business model correctly, and I've watched enough Twitch to feel like I should understand the business model correctly, people asking streamers to say happy birthday on stream, generally, there's a financial element involved normally. I wanted to go queen e5 here, but then he just continues chasing it, and it doesn't really end up on particularly good squares if it goes towards the king side, so I'll take on a5. But yeah, this is not great, because he has rook c2 in the end there. And I think he might be better. And once again, there I go with the gender assumptions. Yeah, pretty sure my opponent is... Hang on a second, this might be a move. This might be a good move, though. Without that move, I was rather certain I was in trouble. And actually, because of that, maybe instead of rook c2, it was better for my opponent to play g5. Yeah, here the question is, I can take on d5, but then, like, the question is whether king f1 is any good. This is what I'm now trying to decide. I think it might be better, because my knight is so great that even, let's say, if we end up with some kind of a 5 against 5, my plan is to actually maybe even push. Yeah, I missed this move though. But it might not be that important, because my plan was kind of always to play h3 followed by e3 to drive this another bishop away from the f3 square and then go e3. And the plan is to, if allowed, establish this pawn on g4, go king g2, king g3. And then, even if a4 gets traded off for b7, which I expect it probably will do at some point, the resulting endgame I think is just horrible for black. The financial element will be me extending my membership. Sorry I ever doubted you, Tzwal. Or, yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that first sound. Yeah, f5 is a very sensible idea, but I think we're not giving him that. I mean, gf5 was also probably very strong, but I like this better. I don't know why. gf5 was actually very strong, because a6 follows if he goes king f6. But now he's also kind of stuck, because if he goes both f6 and h6, even taking followed by a6 is extremely strong. And the thing about this position is that I'm actually quite happy to play a6, as I mentioned, even without winning immediate material, because of just how strong... very difficult for me to believe this works. Like, extremely difficult. And okay, here once again we can just kind of cash in. I don't really care about the a7 pawn. I'm very happy with trading the a pawn for the b5 pawn. And then... yeah, and about this position, I thought that this was winning. Simply. Because I will at some point pick up the h-pawn and just queen my h-pawn. I'm also winning on time, but that's less relevant because I am actually, I think, completely winning on the board as well. Because the h-pawn just gets... I mean, I continue on my way to the b-pawn, and once the king leaves the e7 square, I go knight f6, take on h7, and then the h-pawn just queens, because none of black's pieces actually can interact with my pushing the h-pawn up the board in any way. Okay. So far, so good. Yeah, and thanks for the GGs, Ice-T. Am I still allowed to go on candid dates with my wife this year? Allowed by who, exactly? Would be my first question. When is my next tournament? I'm going to Moscow to play in the Tal Memorial, which is... it's a tournament which assumes different forms every year, I think, and this year it's a rapid / blitz event which has a very strong field. This one doesn't seem to be starting, so we'll give it the usual 5 seconds treatment. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sorry Marazzo, can't wait. Was I white in that game? Did I just do my usual the game is not starting because I'm not making the first move thing again? Holy cow. Did I just do that again? Please tell me I was black. Yeah, this is some kind of old school theory which I'm not entirely sure about. I think I'm supposed to take on d4, and that position is actually quite sharp and supposed to be quite decent for black, and what I will get here is a lot more boring, so I'm very unhappy with my choice. Yeah, should have taken on d4. Yeah, because this... I'm not even entirely sure I've completely equalized, and also the position is just like yawn city. And the other line actually gets quite sharp in some cases. No problem, Marazzo. If you reissue the challenge, you might still get it later in the show, although I never make those promises and I will not make them now. But you might still get it, depending on how full my dance card is. Yeah, we all remember that one time, Galactic. That was like senile moment of the, well, not of the century. Obviously, I'm not gonna overstate the importance of my senile moments, but That was a very good senile moment, me complaining that the game is not starting whilst not making the first move. A5 followed by A6 is, I mean, potentially mildly annoying, but I'm not that worried. Yeah, and this is obviously very sensible from my opponent, but I'm just in time to play d5 here, which means I will be, I think, ever so slightly better, although the structure, I think, is symmetrical enough for me not to have anything objectively. But I mean, you obviously pick black. My bishop is slightly better. My structure is slightly better because of this slightly awkward pawn on f3. And yeah, there's going to be some pressure here on my opponent. I'm not sure about rook f8, because after rook a d1, if he goes rook a d1 here, the position is a bit strange, because I would very much like to maintain my pin along the e-file, but it's difficult to do, because if I move the bishop anywhere, he trades on d8 and then my pin is gone. Yeah, queen e3 check actually has a point, so I'll go for a cheapo, because sometimes you have to go for cheapos. But my opponent probably figured it out, because if king h1, then bishop c4 actually would be quite strong. That was kind of the whole point of the cheapo I was attempting. But now we kind of have to go sort of move on to the next one. I'm heating up this pawn on a4, and also creating slightly awkward tensions for him on the e and d files, because if he does nothing, rook takes d1 might be slightly awkward to meet. Let's say if he goes b3 after I take on d1, it kind of depends on whether he can take with the rook, although it now appears as if he can. And this move I thought wasn't very good, because in this position I have rook d2, which might just win on the spot actually. I was planning to take on b5 first and then go rook g2. That was also quite strong. But this just wins because rook takes g2 is more or less an unstoppable threat in this position. And suddenly I'm giving mate in whatever it is. So yeah, this kind of went downhill sharply for my opponent from a certain moment. There's somebody called Etsili Midon in the list, who I will probably play in the segment of the show where I play lower rated people, because that is a very, very good screen name. Also, I don't envy him his fielding position, because he gets hit by mistimed pulls and stuff. Can't really help you there, Brain Boy, particularly because it's been a really long time since I read a tactics book. But I think Google is your biggest friend there, because or you can ask around on the forums, including, I suspect, Chess24 forums, and people in this chat will probably direct you to good solving books. But yeah, I'm not the best source of information on that. My suggestions would be severely outdated. So we are apparently 3.5, 2.5 up in our match in the Bundesliga, and by we I mean the Baden team, which is good news. This is a very strange decision by my opponent. I mean, I understand going bishop c8 looks kind of vaguely ridiculous and embarrassing, and you don't want to do that either. But giving me this trade is not great. I think preserving that bishop, Eventually, I would have to go back with that knight anyway. It wouldn't have been on g5 forever, and then black could just pretend that slight hiccup never happened. Yeah, high to Miktal, but yeah, if I have to click more to read the question, that question is probably getting ignored. There's no way I have enough time whilst playing chess to read questions which require for me to scroll back up and then expand. Have you ever chosen aesthetical moves against better ones in serious tournament? The answer is, if I was absolutely sure something is much stronger, then no. But if I had a suspicion something is stronger, but another move appealed to me greatly on grounds of, you know, beauty, or I just felt like making it, you know. Sometimes you just make moves because you feel like making them. Then absolutely more than once would do it again, would recommend. All those things. This is, you know, I'm kind of trying to lose here, I have a feeling. Like knight takes e4 might just win here, because of knight g3 and rook f2 to follow up. The rook should never have left the f1 square. Luckily for me, I think in the end of that variation, the queen hangs on g6, which is the saving grace for me. But yeah, I'm kind of well, no kind of about it. I'm flirting with very, very serious danger here by doing what I'm doing. Bishop takes f5 is not horrible, and here the issue is I would like to go king g2, but then I think knight h4 check just works. So this is another one of those positions where admitting you were wrong is maybe something I should consider. Is the Grunfeld only for those with very strong memory? I think this, and this is a mistake, he should never allowed me. He should have never allowed me for the structure change. He should always preserve the option of placing a piece on d4. And this, yeah, suddenly I'm just comfortably better here. This is a blunder, obviously, but the decision to allow bishop takes d4 was a huge mistake. Even just immediately taking on b4 here and planting a knight there is not horrible. And anyway, giving me this trade would immediately gave me this very, very safe position where my pieces are, you know, I have squares to play with and so on and so forth. Yeah, I will... yeah, and thanks to Colin for expanding on something I mentioned in the start of the broadcast. There will be low-rated games later in the show, but whilst I'm still alive, and it is kind of late-ish where I am, not very late, but late-ish, I want to try and give you the higher-rated games whilst I can still play them reasonably well. Mr. Dodgy apparently has not been very lucky with his pairings. Okay, so this is something that people do to avoid f3 lines, but it also allows this. And this leads to positions which are at the very least kind of fresh, or at least fresher than the usual stuff. Although my opponent seems to be, well, I mean, unsurprisingly, seems to be well versed in what's going on here as well. Probably was a mistake not to go knight c3, but I was bored, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. Oh, you got to play Adiban. How was Adiban's show? We had a group chat when this event was announced, and he was kind of half-jokingly concerned that he will get overshadowed by the later shows, and we explained to him that him being selected to play the first one is an extremely important responsibility, and It's very important to get sort of set the tone right. Did I know that pigs are smarter than dogs? I think this is fake news. I think pigs are extremely smart, but I'm not sure if the science says they're actually smarter than dogs. Maybe it is, though. I mean, I have read up on the subject at some point, but I'm not sure if there is like this absolute certainty that they are smarter than dogs. They are extremely smart animals, though. But this, I think, is well established by this point. I kind of want to, like, there's the bishop takes d6 followed by bishop c4 check, but it's very, very boring, so... yeah, and very good for Adiban. It's nice to hear that he crushed everyone. I mean, knight d4, he goes e5, I take, he takes, I go bishop h6, I set up a cheapo, which he doesn't blunder. And then I'm not sure if I'm better, which is kind of alarming. But we'll go for it anyway. Cats are arguably the coolest because they don't really care about us. We provide food, and we are tolerated by cats. And for a vast majority of my life, I wasn't really a cat person. And then at our summer house, a cat started visiting us regularly. Because obviously we gave her food, not for any kind of sentimental reason. That would be ridiculous. But we kept feeding her, and she kept coming back. And I kind of realized why people like cats. Cats are cool. But I'm still, at heart, I'm still very much a dog person. The thing about this bishop on h6 is that it gets driven away very easily by either knight f7 or knight f5, any one of those two moves. Justification for the double pawns is very simple. Yes, as you mentioned yourself, Ivayo, Black needs to part with his dark squared bishop after fianchettoing it. Both things are very important there, because if the capture happened from the f6 square with the pawn still on g7, it would be very, very difficult to justify for white allowing this. But because Black already played g6, you get this complex of dark squares on the king side which you can work against. And in some cases it will be sufficient compensation for spoiling your pawn structure. In some cases it will be overwhelming compensation for spoiling your pawn structure. So yeah, that's obviously a major reason. I'm not even I will consider it now, but instead of rook a d1, I wasn't really going to consider queen takes c6, because I think rook a d1 is a much more important move for me to make. But here, because it actually creates some threats, I will pick this pawn up. Let's say if bishop d7 here, I can go bishop c4 check, knight takes c4, rook takes d7, and that just wins on the spot. I'm also currently threatening bishop takes g6, which is a large threat. And if he has to go something like knight f7, the bishop probably needs to depart to somewhere like e3. But I have won a pawn on the queen side and made some progress in general. Try an indoor bunny. The thing with pets, though, and the reason we don't have pets, is that we're a family of 4, and exactly 50% of us, and that 50% sadly includes myself, is hugely allergic to most things to do with animals. Which makes it incredibly difficult to have pets. Which is very, very regrettable, because all 4 of us are, in love with animals of all shapes and sizes, and we would have had a small farm, I think, by now, if not for the fact that I get covered by like pound coin size blisters if I go anywhere near animals. Bishop takes g6 wins another pawn. Bishop c5 looks very strong. I don't know, bishop c5 looks the stronger of the two. Yeah, we had an aquarium, but uh, it's not very interactive. First and foremost, like the biggest issue about with having fish is like the interaction you can have with the fish is not great, and kind of I'm slowly but surely completely winning here now. I should just win material here. There's probably more than one way. Queen c6 looks very strong. Queen a5 looks very strong. Let's just concentrate for 1 minute and calculate this to the end, and then we can proceed discussing various pets in there, pluses and minuses. I think Queen a5 is probably the strongest. And also Olga needed to, like, as usual, most household chores and chores in this household are passed on to Olga, and she had to clean the aquarium all the time, and then they would die anyway of some mysterious malaise, which was very regrettable, obviously. Yeah, and here I just win a piece. What's my opinion on Fischerandom? I was 4-time world champion in the game, so I'm generally in favor of it. You can keep the giraffe outside and kids can still pet him through the window. Yeah, that's a very workable business model. I do not disagree. Perpetual stalemate. Okay, so we are 1 hour in. The decision has to be made whether we continue searching for like 2300 upwards opponents or we do some mix and match now. I think maybe it's time for the mix and match. I don't really know Tarkovsky well enough to have an opinion, Kappa. It's shameful for a Russian, I suspect, but that's how it is. Okay, one last one, because I don't think I've seen this screen name before, and this might be my first ever game against this person, and I like first ever games on this server. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I quite like this board theme myself. Not that I mind the blue one, but I quite like this one. Yeah, who wouldn't love to have dragons? My dream when I was a kid, we had this what's called the Large Soviet Encyclopedia, which is basically I think it's the edition we had, which obviously my parents got through subscription. Those things were not easy to get, I think, in those years. It's like a 53 volume tome, which supposedly covers every single subject and gives you detailed information on everything. And I decided to become a huge specialist on large cats. And I read up on all the families and orders of large cats, and I was a huge specialist on their, areas where they lived and their, sleeping and eating and mating habits and all these things. And I was like my biggest, probably my biggest childhood dream, if we're talking, like if we're including the completely unrealistic ones. Why didn't I play d5 in this position? Because I'm stupid. Was to have a large cat as a pet, like something like a lion. Yeah, I really should have gone d5 there, and also my opponent should have started with rook fd1, not rook ac1. It was not a good decision to do it the way he did, and it was not a good decision for me to allow this. I'm not playing this game very well at all. Yeah, this is quite horrible for me now, because I've allowed knight d5 at exactly the moment where it kind of does a lot of damage, because I have no good squares for anything. Queen c7 was probably a saner choice, but I will do this just to kind of fool with his head a little bit. But my position, like, this is what they dream about. These types of positions where one pawn is on d5, and very importantly, the other one is on a5. fixing those pawns on a6 and b7. And if white manages to play, like, move the knight away somewhere, play c4, b4, bring it back to b3, and then push for the c5 break, white generally, the moment the pawn crosses over to c5, black kind of resigns. So I will now have to do something to try and stop that. But for a plan which sounds very, very simple, it's surprising how difficult it is to stop. So yeah, I'm in a tremendous amount of trouble here. I don't really... Okay, I was going to say I don't really like this move, but my opponent is a kind of a... what's the term I want to use here? He's not taking any prisoners. He's now threatening rook a1 and just capture this queen on a4, which forces me to make some very uncomfortable decision. But I'm not that unhappy about having to play knight c5, in particular if he forces him to take, which I think it does. And I think in these structures, black should be more worried about positions where white goes for the whole c4, b4 plan than the positions where white establishes this protected pass pawn on d5. Even though this is not a picnic either. White recently has been winning these types of positions quite consistently by combining the threat of opening the queen side with b4 with just going king h1 and then g4, g5 and giving mate, because this pawn on d5 is just such a dominant force here. This is very, very ambitious, and I'm not sure it's that great, to be honest, because the thing about this move is, if it doesn't win on the spot, which I think in this particular case it doesn't, he kind of shoots his bolt a bit too early, and he gives me counterplay. Like, if I can now establish some kind of a blockade on the c5 square, in particular if I get to play knight d7, and then there's actually even some consideration to taking with the rook here, but I will refrain from doing anything crazy for the time being. Although, yeah, now I realize the error of my ways. After queen b4, I can still go rook queen e7, because d6 I have rook d6, but the bigger issue is how I meet rook b1. Yeah, this is still very, very annoying. Maybe I should have taken with the rook. I'm kind of... yeah. I'm regretting not doing that now. And once again, as you see, if you imagine the same position but with my pawns on a7 and b6 against the pawn on a4, black is immediately much better. But with my pawns on a6 and b7, I'm still fighting for survival here, and objectively probably shouldn't survive, to be honest. This is not a good position. But I can play for tricks as usual. I can try and establish some kind of a blockade. Bishop d3 is probably very annoying, creating ideas of bishop f5, trying to shift this knight from d7. Queen b7, rook a5 I don't dislike all that much, because it at least gives me, you know, something to look forward to in the passed pawn on the a-file. Sure what's going on with the stream. Let me just briefly check in the other window, because the game definitely hang for me, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. I assume it's my move, but well, it's not on my screen here, so yeah, I don't know what I can do about it. I played knight d7 ages ago. I can see now on the screen in the stream that I assume I've already lost the game on time, I guess. So yeah, I don't know what can be done about it, to be honest. Yeah, you played really well, Chackle, although we both had a strange sequence where you allowed d5 and I didn't play d5. So, guys, what about... I understand the game is hanging, but what about sound picture? Give me a quick heads up about... okay. Hang on. Let's just try and accept... Okay, seems to be fine-ish now. So we only lost that one game where I wasn't doing well, but I was trying to find a solution to very real problems my opponent was posing to me. Regrettable, but what can you do? At least the stream seems to be fine-ish. Yeah, I'll go d5. I don't really like those positions with knight f6, bishop g5, and bishop takes f6. Objectively, they are probably the stronger response to knight c3, because by playing d5, I'm also allowing him to play bishop f4 here, which might be a good idea. But yeah, which is immediately what my opponent is doing. Yeah, Chuckfield always does that, hacks the streamer's internet. Yeah, bad boy Chuck. Yeah, what I'm doing here is frankly not very good at all. And I suspect something like h4 would, I mean, win is probably a very strong statement, but would be extremely strong. But if White continues ignoring my moves and just making sensible moves on his side of the board, I might at some point become okay. And I think the knight should not be on e5. With the bishop on e6, knight should at least present the threat of going to g5, I think, in most positions. I can go knight e4, but then it just gets driven away immediately. I think I'll solve the issue of the bishop on e6 because it's kind of bugging me. I want to put it on g8 and then kind of return to all my other questions. I would very much like some, well, to be honest, it's going to be such an ugly sight, Cardinal Super Blinds, that I'm not sure anybody wants that. But, like, in an ideal world, I would dearly love a net session. So, if I'm ever in England and you can actually organize one, I'd be extremely grateful. I haven't equalized here, and also my position is kind of ugly. I think what happened in the previous game kind of threw me for a loop there, and also I'm not a very proficient Dutch player these days. Please don't follow what I did in this game. This gives me additional options which I don't think I deserved. I'm still not sure where I'm going with this, to be honest. I'm kind of trying to tempt him to play f4, but f4 is a good move. I'm honestly, like, this game, the sooner it's over, the better, because I would very much like to forget I played chess in such a horrendous manner. I honestly have no idea what I'm doing here. Knight e6 g4 just looks horrible, horrible. So yeah, we'll go knight e4 and pretend it was all part of a master plan, but I probably just wasted like 3 tempi there for no good reason that I can see. Yeah, the bishop on g8 is not placed particularly well, Sunil, but then again, in this structure, once you play d5 and f5 and this bishop is on c8, it's not that easy to kind of name the square on the board where it will not be misplaced. On g8 at least it's not getting in the way. That was kind of the point. And now my bishop is feeling a lot better about life. I'm still not doing very well at all, but The bishop is not as horrible as it used to be. Breathing any kind of life into this position will be extremely difficult though. Like, I'm probably not worse anymore, but how do I open anything at all in this position is a much more important question, to which I have no answer. Like, white probably actually is still much better because of just how much better his light piece is. And I don't think I like knight g5. I think the knight should have stayed on c3 and white should have played for some kind of g4 breaks, hoping to force me to make weaknesses. Yeah, I don't know why I played king f7. This creates no ideas. I play h6, but I don't think I want to play g5, to be honest. I might have to, just because I'm so incredibly unhappy with how my pieces are positioned. But I'll start with queen d8. I'll start by... You know, the queen on d7 had no moves, so if something goes wrong after I play g5, with the queen on d7 I just lose. With the queen on d8 I can at least maybe switch it to some better squares on the king side if things start going haywire. Yeah, my opponent, perhaps somewhat understandably considering like the setting, is trying to make a draw here. Okay, and yeah, this is the kind of a scenario I was talking about, where I pushed g5 and I am now, well, maybe not lost, maybe lost is a bit strong, but kind of suffering. And I think now I have to take and pretend I'm not losing this. Like, I go a5 and bishop d7 and offer a draw and hope it gets accepted. Yeah, that really wasn't a very good game. Yeah, I apologize. I apologize for that. That was kind of horrible. Okay, let's play some. There's actually a lot of high-rated challenges in this still. But let's at least mix them up. We played somebody below 2000, let's play somebody higher rated now, and then below 2000 again, and let's try and do this kind of alternate sequence. Who's the best coach in the world right now? That's a good question. The names that would sort of immediately crop up if that question was asked would be, I guess, definitely Chuchilov, who has had a lot of success with a number of very strong players. In terms of Russian juniors, it's definitely going to be Sergei Shipov, who has been doing some stellar work. He's worked with Aparin. He's now working with Yesipenko. He's worked with Daniil Dubov earlier. So, and but that's if you actually mean coaching and not seconding, like coaching as in taking somebody from a reasonably young age and making a chess player out of him. Okay, this endgame is actually not as boring as I originally thought, because of the material, well, not the material imbalance, but the bishops against knights dynamic, and it might even be quite decent for me, somewhat surprisingly, because the structure generally is quite good for black, but in this particular setup with my knight sort of well established on d3 very early, which I think is by far the best square for this piece in this position, kind of making it a lot harder for black to push for the minority attack on the queen side, because I can even meet b5 with b4 in many situations, and then place something on c5 where it will be quite strong. Yeah, king b1 was just way too vague, because if I go b4 now, he can play knight e4. I should have played f3. I've been kind of postponing this move to f3 for way too long. It's a very important part of what I was trying to achieve here. This kind of a setup where this knight on f6 has no real future. This is what I was kind of going for originally, and then I forgot. And king b1 is a kind of a move you make because, like, the king should be on b1 in general in these types of positions, but you still need to count tempi, even in positions as seemingly slow as this one. Okay, this falls into the... No, I think it actually is a kind of a don't try this at home kind of move. I'm not going to play b4 because it doesn't end well. I calculated some lines and it really, really doesn't end well there for me. He can go knight d7, b6 and then try and land it on c4. But then maybe I can go for f4, f5. Knight a5 I like slightly less, but it also makes sense from the same perspective. Yeah, b3 is a very ugly move to make. I'm gonna try and avoid that. But yeah, I'm not playing this particularly well, to be honest. Much about this game is of less than stellar quality. After knight d7, the point of my move was to play b4. I was kind of, as usual, I'm trying to kind of out-calculate my way out of a position I dislike. But even there, I'm not sure I'm doing so well. I'll go for it anyway, because I think at least it changes the structure. Well, I don't think, it definitely does change the structure. Whether it changes the structure to my advantage or not is a whole different question. He goes knight c4 here, I take, because sadly for me the knight on the pawn on e5 doesn't allow me to play bishop d4 immediately. He should probably take with the b pawn. And yeah, this is the position I was kind of debating with myself. I think bishop d4 is wiser than f4, because if I go f4 he goes f6, and if I take, the knight from f6 can jump to e4, which is something I would very much like to avoid. Yeah, but here, yeah, this is the big question. After rook a3, king b2, am I in time to stabilize or not? I think I am, but this might actually be a draw after rook ba3. Yeah, this is kind of annoying, because maybe not though. Let's not make a draw just yet. Okay. And this is a kind of an endgame which, unless I blundered something, might be quite good for me because of the passer on the b file, which makes most endgames better for me, I think. And very importantly, he has no time to play knight b8 here because I have b5. I will be playing b5. Actually, if he goes king c7, I don't need to hurry with b5, but I will probably play it anyway. But I guess I just don't win here, right? This is my opponent's point here, that I don't break through. And it actually is a very valid point. Yeah, I just don't make any progress, regrettably. Is this an attempt to lose if I go bishop d6 here? He goes d4, c3. Might be a losing attempt, actually. What a... Okay, and now I have to resign. Yeah, I was a bit too fanciful there. Just go bishop d4 back and offer a draw. Yeah, this is now probably completely lost. Yeah, more than probably. I need to go for some kind of a race, which I will obviously never win here. Yeah, this is never going to work out for me here. Yeah, you can more or less resign here. I don't know what king c6 is about, but just d3, d2 at any point. I'm not sure what my opponent is doing. I think he's kind of trying to gift me a draw here for sentimental reasons. Which I kind of appreciate, but I mean, he was completely winning on a number of moves. I have no idea what's going on here. I mean, I appreciate it and everything, but yeah, maybe I should have just resigned. Kind of not resigning somewhere here was maybe a mistake. But obviously bishop e7 was just me blanking out. If I go bishop d6, the reason I went bishop e7 is that with the bishop on d6 in this position, if I go king b4, he goes d3, the d-pawn just queens. And if he goes d4 here, king b4, d3, I do have bishop g5, although once again, after knight takes c5, I can probably resign. So yeah, that was just me going completely blank for a second, and obviously instead of all this, I can repeat at any point. Okay, so we've had 2 horrible brain farts in a row, and there's still an hour and a half to go, which is very, very alarming. Well, I promised under 2000, but this kinda qualifies, I think. I hope. I hope people will be appeased by this choice. And chat seems to have died down, so... Is the stream dead, guys? Tell me the stream is not dead. Guys? Doesn't seem to be dead. But there's suddenly 0 activity in chat after the chat has been sort of fast and reasonably furious for a while, so I became alarmed. Not entirely sure what I'm doing here, but I think the inclusion of a6 and a5 makes it a lot harder for black to develop properly in these lines. And this is like a small trick, because I always used to start with rook e1 after castles and move 7 there. But then black can play a6, a4, b6, and starting by a4 is a potential workaround against that, which prevents black from achieving that particular setup. So it's, I think, a reasonably smart thing to do instead of the usual rook e1. And now black is kind of stuck, because he would like to go knight e5, but it just flat out loses a pawn after bishop takes e5, queen takes d8, and knight takes e5. Knight c5, I can even take and go e5, which looks extremely strong in all these types of positions. Yeah, here I think it's kind of crushingly strong. If he takes on d1, then knight d5 in the end there completely wins for me. So he has to play either like knight h7 or knight h5 here and hope that nothing bad happens to him. But I think this should be a bit of a forlorn hope. I don't really follow correspondence chess at all, and the chat seems to be back, which is good. There seems to be some kind of a commotion in the next room, but that's not unheard of in this household, so I'm hoping everybody is alive and all that. I'm pushing for e5, e6. Basically, if e6 lands at any point in this game, black is in a lot of trouble. And despite a lot of material seemingly coming off the board, this is still a horribly dangerous position for black. I would go as far as to say that it's probably just flat out lost. Despite, you know, I'm even very happily trading more pieces here because of just, you know, how different the strength, the bishop strength is here. Queen h5 is very strong, but e6 just looks like it wins. I like book-related questions in general, Bonham, but this one I don't quite understand. Would you like to clarify what you were attempting to ask? My kids speak fluent English, yeah, that's kind of the one thing we've done correctly in their upbringing. So that was a below, yeah, let's, since that was a bit of a cheat, let's pick an actual below the 2K threshold game, and then we'll go back to higher rated challenges and hope that my mind is kind of back. And I should probably at some point close the window because I'm in the spirit of kind of general collapse around here. My chair died, the one I normally use, and I'm sitting on a chair which is okay but not particularly ergonomic. And there is also an open window which is exacerbating. I like the word exacerbating. It's a nice long word. Exacerbating my back issues, potentially. So I think queen takes b2 might be a forced draw here. But the problem with that is, if I don't play queen takes b2, I might not make a draw. So it's a bit of a difficult dilemma. No problem, namesake. Didn't really like my play, but I think you played fine. I'm kind of trying to figure out if I can do something fanciful here and not lose. Seems to be difficult. But let's go for it. I mean, come on. Why don't I play Budapest Gambit? I don't play Budapest Gambit because, sadly for the black players of that wonderful opening, if white knows even a little bit about the opening, he will not refute it, but he will get a very stable, completely free advantage against you with very, very little effort. Which is the most annoying thing about it. You don't really mind getting worse positions in general if they are still lively. That's a very important quality. They need to be lively, because otherwise, why are you playing a worse position if you can play a perfectly good one? So they have to be lively, and also your opponent's play needs to be difficult to find. Your opponent, to get the better position, needs to do something special, needs to actually know like important details. Whereas in the Budapest, in particular in the bishop f4, bishop before check knight d2 lines, there's like, you just need to know that you go bishop f4, bishop before check knight d2 more or less. And you will get a position where you have the bishop against the bishop and knight, and you will have some pressure, and some of those games you will win. Most of them, I guess, you will draw, but some of them you will win with white, and you will also be the only side enjoying it. So yeah, I had to give up on the Budapest. I have played a decent amount of that opening when I was much younger, and I enjoyed it, and if white plays something which attempts to refute the opening, then you get interesting positions, which could very easily be very, very bad for black, but at least they are extremely double-edged and very sharp. Would I be willing to comment on the Illuminati and the other secret groups that rule the world? I wouldn't want reptilians to be aware of me knowing all of their secret plans, so I will keep stum on the subject. I mean, come on, why are you trying to endanger my family? Benko is very playable, obviously. There's nothing particularly wrong with the Benko. But once again, against somebody who knows what he's doing with white, you're not going to be playing for a win very much. Yeah, Jan has very strong ideas on the dolphins. Those ideas have been covered, I think, at length in our streams. So, something I reread constantly. No, I mean, there's so much I haven't actually read yet, Bonhams, that I don't return to. I mean, a6 was just completely winning here, but I wanted to connect the rooks because my position is just so utterly winning and has been for a while. So I kind of tuned out there. I have no idea what that is, Vova Branya. I mean, to play an opening, you need to be aware the opening exists, and I don't know what that opening is. Grunfeld is, I think, a good idea for casual players, because yes, you need to do a lot of memorizing to play it at a very high level, but the same applies to white. And the opening actually is extremely healthy right now. So there is really no reason to be particularly worried about anything. Nobody really seems to know what to do against it. So I think you'll... I mean, it's a very, very healthy opening at any level. It's maybe not the best, not the most intuitive opening, because the idea of sort of flank play against a pawn center might not come very naturally to everyone. But all in all, I think it's a very good opening. And here I think we'll finally wrap this up after I pick up this rook on b5. I'm sure they are Habit Noir. I'm sure they are. As with every great novel, I mean, even with the best translation, something will be lost. So let me just deal with the window for a sec. And also do some brief stretching. Talking about streamers doing stretching, and this will probably reach a target audience of about one person in chat, but Shady has done a rehearsal blindfold stream today, and he will be doing a proper blindfold stream, I assume, soonish. And those things are fantastic. If you haven't seen him stream Hearthstone blindfold, you should actually... I mean, there's a VOD available. You should really watch that. That is something out of this world. I logged in for cricket chat and chess has broken out. Yeah, I know what you mean, Babel. It's dispiriting. Where's all the cricket chat? Yeah, and I keep on like. Why am I doing this to myself? I don't know this theory. This actually, I mean, there's a decent amount of theory about these lines. Also, it's not good theory for black either. It's very confusing to myself why I'm subjecting myself to this. Like, I know this is not good. Just play bishop d2, then e4, f4, knight f3, bishop d3, castle z5, mate is the general plan here, and it's a very good plan. So yeah, very, very confused as to why I chose to go for this. Doing this like for the first time without knowing how bad it is semi-understandable. Doing this to yourself when you actually know how bad it is beyond stupid. You just get crushed underfoot. There's like the 2 tempi or 3 or whatever it is, it's a lot of tempi. The amount of tempi you spend picking up one measly pawn on b2 is nowhere near commensurate with the amount of pain that will be inflicted upon you in the center here. It's not even funny. Just how bad and unpleasant this position is. Like, you don't do this. I don't know why I did this, but like, if you have any choice at all in life, don't go in for this. Just g4 here. I mean, none of my pieces have any squares. Rook b1 is also fine, I guess. Then d6 and mate along those lines. The queen needs to come back to at least some kind of squares. Yeah, this is extremely ugly. Made even uglier by the fact that it could have been so easily avoided by not going in for any of this stuff. I mean, objectively, this is probably just lost. I'm kind of... I dislike the idea of resigning here, but on kind of purely stubbornness grounds. And for kind of meme ground, on meme grounds as well, because there are, you know, too many jokes already about me resigning way too early. I don't want to feed this even further. I'm trying to open up spaces for at least some of my pieces to, you know, have some moves. These are not good moves, but at least, you know, I've developed one piece to a square which I don't hate. Which is, you know, grounds for very guarded optimism. Very, very guarded optimism, though. Because, like, if I castle, he takes on e6, I take on e6 back, he goes queen e4. There's no way for me to actually protect the... No, I can play g6. I mean, it's going to be unbelievably ugly once again, but I don't need to resign straight away, which is, like, the benchmark for success here. I'm trying to make moves which don't make me resign on the spot. And also, now his king on e1 is somewhat stuck, so I do have some things going for me in this position, which definitely wasn't true a moment ago. Have I missed mate in one in an official game? At least once, maybe... Well, I definitely was mated in one move, which took me by surprise, but that was in a junior competition 28 years ago. Since then, I don't think so. But I wouldn't be willing to bet my, you know, entire life savings on that being completely true. And I might actually be getting away with it here, which is frankly completely unbelievable. Like, I shouldn't be anywhere near this game. I mean, the game should have been over ages and ages ago. How it's still continuing is very baffling. I mean, he's still doing very well here, don't get me wrong, but I have actual counterplay. I'm not, maybe even worse, which is a sentence I was not, you know, ready to contemplate some time ago. The 5 at b7 is hanging might actually be relevant later in the game, which is why, it has to still be the correct move. I need to trade some of those bishops and you know, have some dark squares to look forward to. Although, I mean, he just takes on b7, I think, with the rook. And the king on c1 is safe enough. Yeah, I don't think I have you know, objective counterplay here that is in any way enough, but it's the best position I've had all game, so let's not knock it. I want to play rook e8 next. This is why I'm making this kind of a weird move. I'm sidestepping all the moves like rook d7, rook d1, all of these things, and I want to play rook e8 next. Or, yeah, I'll still place it on this file because I think it's the better file. If he goes knight d5, I can find the square for this rook. Like rook d4, I guess, maybe. If I somehow manage to include the knight on h... I mean, if this knight actually becomes a real boy, I might still be okay, but yeah, it seems unlikely. Yeah, rook f1 is a very strong idea. I can very, very severely underestimate it. Whoops, there's queen g7 mate at the end of that line, which is kind of regrettable. I was kind of looking forward to making this move, rook d5, bishop b3 check, and then queen takes f1. But he just goes king b2, and then there's queen g7 in the end. Sad. Need to make a move of some description. Ah, move. Queen takes d4, just, no, queen d4, queen a3, yeah, queen d4 just wins on the spot. No, I have rook e1 check, maybe. But I will lose on time here. If nothing else, I will lose on time. I mean, my position is also still probably completely lost, but it's now resembling something I could have tried defending, but I was too slow and I talked too much. So yeah, this will be the first. I think I lost, I mean, I definitely lost, sort of, in the record books, it will be a loss, the game I played earlier where my stream just completely crashed. But this is the first actual loss of the stream. This game my opponent just played better than I did. Knight takes f6 is kind of mate in 5, which he should spot. If he goes knight f6, I just resign because, okay, I mean, I don't really understand the draw offer. This is some kind of a, yeah, I mean, maybe I should reply by resigning, but if he takes on f6 and I take on f6, rook e8 followed by bishop e4 is just mate. So knight f6 just won on the spot here for him. Very confused by the draw offer because you really shouldn't be giving your opponent draws when you've done nothing wrong and you've completely outplayed him for every step of the way. But yeah, I mean, we take those as they say. We take those. We only hire the absolute best win traders on this stream. But obviously the quality of my play has dropped off very, very significantly from the first hour, when I felt I played objectively quite good chess. Yeah, Queen A4 check maybe was not a bad idea there. That's a good point, Conte Yellow. I didn't see it though, so it doesn't count. That's an interesting opening to be playing when you don't really remember any of your analysis, but once again, that's what we do here. I need to be sure about the move orders here. I think I'm supposed to start with this. Like in the line, I mean, not objectively. Objectively, there is a lot of things you can be doing in this position, but the line I specifically meant, I think, starts with Rook B1 and then continues Rook G1, aiming to push for G4 and then Rook G3. Ah, you saw Queen A4 and you thought that wasn't very much. Then you saw a lot more than me in that game, including in the final position, Philip, and that explains the draw offer. I just didn't see. I'll be entirely frank with you. I just didn't see Queen A4 check, and I thought Knight takes F6 was just crushing. I was very fixated on the idea of playing Queen D3 check against anything. Which just didn't work because your rooks covered everything after Rook D2, but yeah, Queen A4 check is a lot stronger. Although I think you're probably still better there regardless. Yeah, that game against Mamidyarov, thank you for bringing it up, Mick. That was a thing of beauty. That was probably the worst I've played in a very, very long time. Now the question is, I can take on C3 or I can take on A7. Both of those look reasonable, but I think if I take on C3, I remain in better control of what's going on the board, so I'll pick this one up. And I want to go Bishop B3, King F2, and once it lands on F2, I think I should be converting quite easily. Also, importantly, if he goes Knight F3 check here, I take twice, he takes on C2. It looks frightening for a second, but actually I have Queen takes B7 mate, which is a very relevant detail in that position. So yeah, I think this is probably very good for me. Can Kramnik be world champion again? If he gets... I think for him, and it might be slightly unfair, but I think for him, winning the candidates might be like the larger half of the challenge. For him specifically, not for everybody. That is not me like bad-mouthing Magnus or anything. But I think for Vladimir specifically, winning the candidates tournament might be... in terms of like percentages, might be a more difficult challenge than beating Magnus in a match. He's not a favorite against Magnus in a match by any means, but I think he's sort of a larger dog, if you know what I mean, to win the candidates tournament compared to how much of a dog he is to win the match. No, I'm not a hockey fan at all. Have any opening that I created myself? No. It's very, very difficult to create openings. And this is a subject I actually thought about it recently. This is something I'm extremely envious of Daniil Dubov, because he keeps on coming up with these quirky little ideas in the Grunfeld. In particular, the Bishop G5 C5 line is what I'm thinking of, where he just looks at the position where there's tons and tons of theory, and people have been doing all kinds of things for years on end, and then he just comes up with something which is completely new and fresh. And I'm sure C5 has been played after Bishop G5 before Dubov started doing it, but he was the first serious player to develop it seriously. And what should probably count as his novelty on move 4 is just such a fantastic record. It's just so difficult to find a new idea these days on move 4. No, I did not invent the early 97 bishop f6 in the Spanish. I was just I think the first reasonably high profile player to play it more than once. Yep. If you start a tournament poorly, Amphikaelis, it's very, very difficult to break out of the rut. I understand what you're talking about, but you have to persevere and you have to maybe try different things. Like the super final I won last year, I started by drawing my first game and then losing horribly with white in the second, and I just decided that from that moment on I will be playing as sharp as possibly, going for what I even maybe consider completely incorrect sacrifices at every opportunity, and I will just sort of force myself to play as sharply and as interestingly, if that's the word I'm looking for, as possible. And it didn't come to fruition immediately, but I think it was the correct approach, and it paid off in the end. So you try to break the mold. You don't do the same thing over and over again. This is like the old saying goes. The definition of, I think it's schizophrenia, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So one thing you don't want to do is that. But apart from just repeating mindlessly what wasn't working, trying something else might be useful. I don't agree with that statement, Bapes. Magic is obviously a very interesting game, but in particular, let's say if you consider the level of accessibility in terms of streaming of current online versions of Magic and Hearthstone. I tried watching Magic streams because I will watch anything at least once, but like it's painful. You can't really understand what's going on simply in terms of accessibility of the graphics. So they will be doing incredibly poorly compared to Hearthstone in terms of attracting new audiences, simply because of how inaccessible the interface is. Yeah, we're kind of glossing over this. This is up to Queen b3 c5. Up to here, this is my game against Volkov, which is covered in one of the videos of the best games of 2017. And knight e5 I don't think is a particularly good move. And somewhere around here, I feel like maybe c takes b2 was just winning on the spot. Queen a5 was a bit of a lazy move, but I'm probably still doing quite well, because I always have c2 followed by queen c3 check. Yeah, it's a definition of stupidity according to Einstein. Yeah, that's correct, Lawrence. Yeah. Or insanity. Yeah, people are disagreeing in chat on this, on what exactly it's the definition of, but nothing good would be a decent description. And here we're just completely winning. Starting with knight e5, what my opponent was doing was very ill-advised. Who will be the hardest opponent for Magnus? I would go with, I think Kramnik is definitely on that list. I think Lev probably is that would be an extremely exciting match if Lev were to play Magnus. But the thing about this tournament is that almost anyone, if he actually wins it, which is very, very difficult, obviously, is very capable of giving Magnus a run for his money. Fabio, of course, yeah. I think it's harder to rule out people in this tournament as not very good challengers. I think almost anyone would be a very, very interesting challenger. I haven't done this in a while, but you know, on a certain level, this line is kind of easy to understand. You push e5, you then play knight f1, h4, knight h2, knight g4, bishop g5, knight f6 check, and you give mate. It doesn't really work like that, but you can pretend it does. No, I don't mean it's so difficult for him to win the candidates, but I think for him, of those two challenges, winning a double round robin of 8 players is maybe harder than winning a heads-up match against Magnus. Because I think he is a formidable match player. That's... I mean, it's very easy to sort of misunderstand what I was trying to say there, but this is the point I tried making there. Not that you know he is for some reason particularly unfavored in a round robin, but that for a player of his style, a match against Carlsen, he would know how to prepare for it. He would know what to look for, and so on. And a candidates tournament, winning a candidates tournament is a very, very difficult thing to do. I have a feeling we actually transposed to something that this might be a game of mine against Karyakin, which would be kind of ridiculous. I think I had this position on the board against Sergei in one of the Russian leagues. Yeah, chess doesn't work like that's you know, despite me quite obviously being the butt of that joke, I quite like the fact that this clip has gone viral. I think I think it's a very funny clip. I don't think Sergei took on c4. I think Sergei went knight b6, knight d6, knight d5 in this position, if this is the actual position I'm referring to. Not that bishop takes c4 is a horrible move, but here I think I can expect, if I manage to solve the issue of how to deal with knight d4, which will come sort of as soon as he moves the rook away from a8. If I manage to regroup my pieces so that knight d4 is not a horrible problem for me, I should still be slightly better. I'm not at all sure about this move. I actually quite dislike it. Because if he goes knight d4, he takes with the c pawn, and then if the knight ever lands on c5, yeah, I'm a lot... Well, actually, even that is not true. I was going to say I'm a lot happier about this, but I don't really have any reason to be. Even this position is very, very playable for black. But here, at least, you know, there is no real attacking plan available to my opponent, because if he takes with the pawn on d4 and then at any point achieves the ideal knight d7, knight c5 maneuver, he is just going to be pushing for an advantage, which is definitely not true about this position. In this position, white is very much in control, or at least white was very much in control until I blundered the e5 pawn. Black couldn't take on e5 on the previous move, because then I would have bishop f4, bishop takes b8. But now that the rook on e1 is hanging, this is... I remember early on in life I read this classification of blunders. And this is termed, I think, like an active blunder. I have created a threat in this position which wasn't there a move ago by moving a piece from a good square to a worse square. Which is not great. I might still be fine though, because he goes queen c7, and if I play bishop f4 he has bishop d6. But I think I have queen b2, which is very strong. I might still be actually close to winning here. What is my goal for 2018? Queen b2 has bishop f6. Yeah, bishop f6 is very strong there. Looks like my stupid mistake will actually cost me quite a bit here. Let's just make a random move. Kind of a pass. He is still very much tied up. It will not be easy for him to untangle himself, but... Well, in order for me to win the Olympiad, I need to be on the Olympic team. Which... I don't think I'm guaranteed a spot. I am not at all certain I'm guaranteed a spot on the Olympic team, so... That's a decent suggestion, but there are some drawbacks to it. As a kind of a long-term ambition, there are some problems with me setting this as a particular goal for 2018. He's actually kind of getting out of the corner. I overestimated how unpleasant it is for him to deal with rook b7 because... yeah, just goes queen d6 here, queen d1 check is a threat. Knight f6 is a threat. I think I'm just much worse now. Which is kind of annoying. Okay, this is not a good move though. My opponent actually played very well up to that point. I really liked what he did with his position from a certain moment onwards, but yeah, blundering a full piece in one move will ruin most positions. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not planning to go to Reykjavik currently. Things might change, but no, it's not currently on the agenda. Do I prefer a rapid or long time? I always, I mean, I used to be very much in the classical camp, but I actually, that was not to say that I didn't like playing Rapid and Blitz. I always liked Rapid and Blitz, and I still like playing Rapid and Blitz, but I'm very much in the, you know, I'm very much on the fence on this. I would very much like to for both Rapid and Blitz to be a thing. Yeah, that was quite well played by my opponent until that unfortunate mistake at the very end of the game. And I see that my remarks on me not being guaranteed a spot in the Olympic team have generated some controversy in chat, but it's not written into any kind of regulations for the Russian Championship anymore. And the team is selected basically with the one and only goal in mind, to maximize the chances of the team to actually win the Olympiad. And you know, it's very questionable. I mean, I have been not selected for the Russian team before, and it can definitely happen again, is what I'm trying to say. Despite me being the reigning champion of the country. I'm also not playing this game at all well. For instance, I was planning to go knight e4 in this position, and then I realized this actually blunders the whole rook, which would be a drawback to most ideas. Yeah, I don't really want to speculate on who will and who will not be on the Olympic team. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I could be like the first name on the sheet. But if I'm not, it will also not surprise me. on a sec. So yeah, I think this is a bit too slow from Sval, and the queen first of all should not have gone to f4. It should have been somewhere around h4 to make it a lot harder for me to move the knight away from f6. And I think once the knight actually leaves the f6 square and the threat of f7, f6 presents itself, I'm doing quite well. But maybe not as well as I thought. Yeah, I quite like this move h3 because it forces me to make a decision. I think I have to take, but the position after I take is not that great for me. I need to play f6, fe5, but then he goes queen h6, queen h7, which is very awkward. I have not played this particular sequence very well. And the threat here, I would very much like to do something about the incoming threat of g4. Let's go for this. At least it leads to funny positions. Yeah, I missed this move, but I'm not sure if it's stronger than like the normal ideas. Because I was planning to run with the king anyway. And now I have this wonderful, wonderful pawn center, and the one thing that remains is to not get mated immediately, which should be achievable, I hope. And then I should be okay. And in particular, because this queen on h7 is a bit stuck, and if I manage to kind of track it down and trade it for mine, I don't even want particularly to try and capture it, although in some positions this could very much become a theme. Like f3 I think is slow enough for me to consider just going for the capture of this queen on h7. But if he goes... Yeah, and basically every single endgame is more or less completely winning for me unless I lose on time, which is something I should not try to avoid by, yeah, playing a bit faster. Okay, yeah. Sorry I shut up there, but I kind of didn't want to lose that that very, very beautiful position with this extended pawn center by continuing to play at my normal speed. Okay, so about 45 minutes left, and I promised a game to Mr. Etsili Midon, so I'll do that, and then we'll fish for some stronger challenges for a while. I am feeling slightly brain dead, but I also have been doing this mix and match for a while, and I feel like returning to the high-level challenges, even though the results might not be very nice to look at, would be more interesting for everybody. Who do I think the Russian team will be in 10-15 years? 10-15 years is a long time. I can sort of name the core of the team I think will be playing in like the 5 years time, but yeah, and I don't like my c4 move at all. I think it was a mistake. But 10-15 is way too long for me to attempt. I think the core of the Russian team of the future you've seen in team events this year, when like the old timers who have been very much, you know, the core players have all rotated out due to, well, being too old in the tooth. The team will be based around, I think, Fedoseev, Dubov, my good friend Maxim Matlakov, hopefully. I hope Nikita Vityugov becomes a regular fixture, and Artemiev is a very interesting up-and-coming player. I think it's too early to talk about Yesipenko in terms of the national team, but I mean, he is obviously an incredibly gifted junior. So, the future doesn't look bleak at all. The future looks quite promising, actually, but yeah, and obviously the known names like Jan Nepomniachtchi is still very young, and he will be very much a player for the team for many years to come. As Chad correctly reminded me, that was a stupid omission on my part. Sergei Karyakin is a tremendously strong player as well. It kind of depends on how serious he is going to be about chess, because when he is very motivated, when he has a clear-cut goal in front of him, I think he is a tremendously strong player who can achieve many things. But he also obviously has other interests in life. I'm not sure about this move, because I'm very badly missing the pawn on h3. The same position with the pawn on h3, and not because of bishop g4, because of knight g4. Bishop g4 I'm not worried about at all. But knight g4 would have been very awkward for me to meet. I want somebody to explain to me what studying the endgames means concretely. You need to know the basics, Guillaume. And by the basics I mean, like in the rook endgames, there are very, very strict rules as to which positions are drawn and which positions aren't. And if you know these rules, they will be of extreme help for you in many cases, because you will know how to simplify properly. You will know what to aim for properly in positions where you will have a choice of entering or not entering a certain rook endgame. In many cases there will, well, in most cases actually, and rook endgames, I'm talking in particular about rook endgames because those are obviously the most common kind, the kind that you see most often, and therefore the most strictly necessary to study. And you can't really calculate those things over the board. So if you don't know, you will make mistakes that will cost you games. And then once you've mastered the basics sufficiently, you can go into deeper things. But first and foremost, what will create the immediate biggest and the most observable improvement in your play in terms of studying endgames is just picking up a comprehensive book on, let's say, rook endings, and teaching yourself what's winning and what's not. That is a mistake, what my opponent just did. It's a very typical mistake people make, but that is a very large mistake. His position, actually, if he goes something like rook f8, is perfectly playable here. It's very important to protect this bishop on e7 so that none of these tactics ever work. And then you can do many things. Like, I mean, I'm still obviously better because of my e4 and c4 pawns and the two bishops, but it's very, very playable for black. Yeah, basically anything by Dvoretsky is a very good starting point. I don't know exactly where you should start with Dvoretsky books, but once again, just look at the catalog and try to figure out where the series start and go from there. Do I think my theoretical endgame knowledge is good? I think it's not as horrible as some people think, but it's not good, no. It has been at some point, but it no longer is. People complaining I haven't played the King's Gambit. Yeah, I mean, this is... we are 2.5 hours in, and at this point, if chat doesn't remind me specifically about my promise to play the King's Gambit, I will play something safer, in particular against people rated as high as this, because I am extremely tired, and I don't really want to subject myself to unnecessary torture by this point. Hey Ollie, very happy to to see you here. Yeah, this type of structure is generally very, very decent for black. I mean, it looks very nice for white because you have bishops against knights, but these are good knights on f6 and g6, and your bishops are somewhat restricted, and b5 is a very playable move. Also, c5, somewhat surprisingly, is a very playable move because the bishop on c1 is my biggest issue, and by placing a lot of his structure on the dark squares, black, I think, does a very decent job of sorry, restricting most of my potential play. Yeah, and continuing on the subject of endgames, where I can just give generalized advice, people in chat are recommending concrete books you can look at, which is very useful because I wouldn't be able to do that. Please avoid the King's Gambit. Yeah, I've been doing that subconsciously, Lurkst. And now he is getting flamed for that comment. Please don't flame common sense. I understand common sense is not the most exciting thing in the world, but I think it's something that is quite clearly lacking in the world right now, in so many respects. So somebody exhibiting clear signs of possessing common sense should not be flamed in our chat. I'm not entirely sure what deep decision my opponent is considering here. Maybe he wants to play d5, but it's just not not a very good idea in general, even if it doesn't lose material on the spot, which I think it does. So you just play rook a d8 here, or c5. I think it's too late to play b5. You needed to play b5 whilst the bishop was still on c1, because then you would get to trade on a4 and not on b5, where it creates a weakness, obviously. So yeah, rook a d8 is what I expected, and I think it's the correct approach. And now I will sidestep... actually, what I would like to achieve is b3 followed by c4, but I'm kind of worried if I let black play d5 in this position, it will suddenly become good, because it hasn't been good for a while. But I think it might be good now. But there's not really a lot I can do about it, so I will pretend it doesn't happen. Knight h5 is generally a decent idea in these types of positions, but I don't think I need to be worried about it just yet, and I will proceed with my stated intention of playing b3 and c4, and hoping I don't get mated on the other side of the board. Although bishop takes h3 followed by queen d7, I think scares me sufficiently that I will include king h2 here. Why aren't you playing in the candidates? I did not qualify, Alejandro. I was not good enough this time. It's a bit weird for me because I have, due to good play and also outrageous good fortune, I have played in every single candidates tournament for a number of years. I mean, starting from 2013, I haven't missed one yet. This will be the first one I miss. And it's obviously a very bittersweet feeling to be commentating on it this year, but it's going to be a tremendously exciting tournament. And I will enjoy commentating on it. I would have liked to play in it as well, but you don't always get what you want. I think I should stabilize, in particular because he had to make this horrible move rook d7, which I don't mean horrible in terms of quality, horrible in terms of how it looks, because it also blocks in his own bishop on c8, so all of his potential attacking threats of, I don't know, bishop takes h3, knight takes g2, knight f4 check, all of them become completely impossible now with the bishop on c8 locked in. Yeah, and this, I mean, with the queen on e3, I should just stabilize reasonably comfortably here. One thing I need to watch out for is the ideas of rook e6, g6, but I think I should be fast enough. This is a mistake. You shouldn't. I mean, there's no earthly reason for black to enter this endgame. It's just an immediately completely lost endgame. I understand my opponent is very short on time here, but like black is a pawn down and also I have the bishops. So there is just, you never ever trade queens there. You have to play queen f6 and continue hoping that this knight on f4 will create some kind of problems for me. Okay, people are asking about the Budapest. Okay, no Budapest for me. Saved by the bell there. I was going to play something I wasn't really going to enjoy very much, and then I got saved by my opponent's decision to dodge it. And this is now a very, very comfortable position. This is a kind of a move order where, like, as Grunfeld players, you dream of positions like this, because generally in Grunfelds you play c5 and nobody ever kind of lets you just take on d4. It's still very playable for white. There's nothing particularly wrong with this, but like it's still an absolute dream for black. Yeah, and c5 is, you know, a very understandable decision, but black gets a lot of immediate pressure in the center here. If he goes bishop e3, there's this very standard tactic of playing knight takes c5 followed by g4, but I'm not sure if it's good. So I will just continue developing normally, and I will reassess if and when this tactic presents itself later. Yeah, I can once again, I can do it here. I think it's just easier for me to play this than explain why I'm not playing it, which is a sort of a non-scientific way of doing things, but sometimes it just works. I mean, once you've done 2.5 hours of this, I think it becomes a very legit reason for making any move. I think the reason Nizhmedinov never became top player was very simply that when he played his best chess, he was still a Soviet player, and there were so many very, very strong Soviet chess players at the time playing that you have to understand that it's very, very difficult to overstate just how much more chances you get as a top player these days in terms of how many events are available. And for a Soviet player in those years, like you just didn't get invitations because there were so few to go around, and they would go to the absolute top players, and he wasn't really the absolute top player. He had a fantastic score against world champions. He beat almost everybody at least once, and he played, you know, a tremendous brand of exciting attacking chess, which is why he is such a crowd favorite. But in terms of objective strength, he wasn't really the best player in the country, and you just didn't get the chances you would get now. It's this simple. There weren't enough tournaments to go around. I should be much better, but I'm kind of confused as to how to convert from here. I mean, convert is maybe a bit strong, but this position is fantastic, but I don't see how I win. So I should just kind of play normal moves, I guess, and not really worry about winning on the spot. You should tell the Dutch guy the right profile. It was mainly his effort. I mean, I was just there spouting my usual brand of whatever it is that I spout. But I thought he came very well prepared. He had interesting ideas for topics and so on. So if you actually enjoyed it, I mean, go on Twitter and tell him. He'll be very happy. I'm still looking for tactical solutions here, which is like I'm annoyed at myself for. I mean, I just can't stop looking for tactical ways to exploit. Okay, I mean, this loses, but if he goes queen c2, I'm not sure why I played bishop b6. This is a bit cleaner. I mean, knight c4 also wins, but this is a bit cleaner. It's a whole piece. Please refrain from posting novels. Yeah, I will actually. That wasn't such a novel, Fuchsia. I've seen bigger novels, mainly by Miktal. No, I think I'm a very intuitive player in general. Using like my chess and the world structures in the same sentence would be, disrespecting all the structure thinkers out there. Why did Morozevich never make it to the very top? I mean, he was world's number 2, I think, at some point. Definitely number 3 more than once. So, by the very top, I guess you mean he never actually challenged for the title. But there's, I mean, you're also asking this question of a guy who achieved like many things in his career, but never really challenged for the title. If I knew the answer to that for myself, I would probably have a better idea how to answer it for Morozevich. He, at his best, he was a tremendously exciting player to watch, obviously. Or maybe top 1, even as Stupendous says. I mean, I wasn't sure about top 1, but he definitely was top 1, top 2 more than, I think maybe more than once in his career. But yeah, that very final step is arguably the hardest one. Why am I playing knight c6? I never ever go knight c6. I mean, my opening choices today are surprising even for myself. Yeah, and he was a tremendously interesting thinker in terms of new approaches to old openings. And this is a rant I've given on more than one occasion earlier, so those who watch my shows will be very familiar with it. But I think he gets severely underappreciated as a theoretician, because his approach to openings, I think, is very often written off as just something off the cuff he cooked up at the board, when he actually, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of thought went into all the offbeat stuff he played. The problem with d5 here is that it is A, the correct move, and B, I think, leads to a draw, which is kind of annoying. But we'll try to avoid the draw there. I think it's possible not to allow the immediate draw in this position. I gave up kind of an answer to that question, Sumil. The names I gave were mainly Russian names because that was the context, but I'm not sure about rook g8 because now bishop e2 actually becomes a bit awkward. That probably is a very, very poor move. But I don't like queen c1 as a reply either. Now we can finally avoid all this nonsense with him chasing my queen around. Of the non-Russian young players, you can name a few, obviously. I like Vidit very much, for instance. I think Vidit is that shouldn't come as any kind of a surprise because he is an established, very strong player by this point. But I think he is definitely one to watch out for. I'm getting completely outplayed here, by the way. Like, I like more or less every single decision my opponent makes, and I really dislike most of the decisions I made from a certain point onwards. Really, really disliking my play. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have to watch out for queen e3. Queen e3 at some point will become incredibly unpleasant. So I'm considering going knight c6, but then after b4 my queen has very few good squares, and by very few I mean none, which is an issue. This knight has to be rerouted to some other squares, basically. I think f6 might be a better square. I'm also kind of hinting at e7, e5 obviously here, but mainly I'm hoping to get this knight to d5. And here, I mean, no, e5 doesn't win a piece. If e5 doesn't win a piece, I should just play b6, I guess. Completely blundered bishop f3. I have no idea what I'm doing in this game. This show has been a bit too long, and it has now devolved into me playing some games passably well and some games just completely horribly, which is not my favorite type of the show, but this is what we are currently experiencing. I'm not dead lost, but it's close to it. Because of this pawn on c4, like, okay, yeah, now I am dead lost. It's really embarrassing how I played this game. h6 was just such a horrible, strange mistake, because, I mean, the queen is on c1. You should be able to figure out that with the queen on c1, h6 is not a particularly good idea. Yeah. My opponent is suffering from no such tactical oversights, which is annoying in a way. Yeah, I think I'll just resign here. I played this game horribly, he played it well, so let's not try to flag somebody who played just from start to finish played better than I did. 20 minutes to go. Let's pick a couple more 5 minutes games, I guess. If I see good 3-minute challenges, I'll take them, but I think we're probably playing 2, at most 3 more games, and we're probably picking 5 minutes. Yeah, there are some very decent challenges out there, but I really don't feel like playing people who are, I think, by this point, just better blitz players than I am. I think it's just asking for punishment. Yeah, and well played, Champy. He actually demonstrated a lot more strategic sense in that game than I did. Why should it be unbelievable? You just played well, Champy. Don't sell yourself short. Yeah, this is... I think I played h3 against Magnus and he was unhappy about not playing e5 here. I think e5 is better than c6, which is what Magnus did. I think I had this position against him in Saudi, in the rapid portion. People are still clamoring for a King's Gambit. You're not getting a King's Gambit, guys, not at this stage of the show. What are the chances of seeing me in Vienna? I'd say not very high, because I'd need a reason to go there. I've been to Vienna and it's a very nice city, but I generally these days don't really go somewhere where like vacations are hard to organize and they generally involve sea and sand and not doing very much, rather than sightseeing and architecture and things of that nature. So yeah, we've been to Vienna, we liked it, but unless there's a tournament there, I don't really expect I will be there soon. When's my next banter? I'm not sure. The Tal Memorial starts early enough that there's definitely no time between now and Tal Memorial for me to do another one. And then there's only 3 days before I go to Hamburg to commentate on the candidates. There will be some rest days during the candidates, so I might do some banters from Hamburg, but I think I probably will have my hands full with commentary work without actively looking for more things to do. Is there a Hitch DVD on the shelf? Possibly. I haven't thrown out... Basically, what you see on those shelves, objectively, there should be some spring cleaning. I've been promising myself I'll do that for a while, but like there's stuff in there which I haven't touched in 20 years. There's potentially some VHS tapes somewhere in this room. So yeah, some spring cleaning is definitely needed, and there could be some remnants of my misguided youth in terms of viewing material and reading material. Well, Chess24 definitely will be doing something about the candidates Phoenix. Is there an elite blindfold tournaments coming up anytime soon? No, those were basically the moment Mr. Van Osterom stopped doing the Monaco events, those basically died out. And I don't think they are returning in any kind of a near future. This is horrible positionally, but I think it works tactically, which is why I'm doing it. And now I realize it doesn't even work tactically, so it's just horrible. That's very annoying. He goes bishop c4, I go b3. He goes bishop a6, I go knight d5. And sadly for me, it's impossible not to play queen e5 in that position. And I cannot take on c7, which is what I was planning to do, because he goes queen c5 check. And now I've ruined my position for no reason whatsoever. Which is, yeah, very, very far from ideal. Just play b2, b3 in this position, rook a d1, any move. But I thought I was winning with f5, so I just... By this point, I try not to overthink things. And whenever I find a move which I feel is good, I just try to make it, because my higher brain functions are, you know, can no longer be described as higher brain functions, is basically what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, this leads to mistakes. I think that explained the purpose of f5 to you, Sumil. It was a tactical oversight, which I thought was winning important material, but it didn't. I do not play online chess on any platform apart from Chess24 currently. Marked. I might still end up doing okay in this game, somewhat undeservedly, but yeah, in particular once he takes on f5, because I think he calculated up to queen takes f5 here, but there is a tactical issue with this. Queen d4 check was even stronger, but yeah, this will suffice. And yeah, I think, you know, in these cases, you can even make an argument for, like, if I could take on, let's imagine I play king h1 and black makes some kind of a passing move like knight f6, I don't know, knight takes e7, rook e7, knight takes a6, ba6. You can make a coherent argument that even winning a pawn like this is sort of so ugly in terms of aesthetics, because you've done so much harm to your bishop on f3, that you should only play f5 in a position like this when it wins an actual piece, not a pawn on c7. So the decision to play f5 here, yes, it was based on a horrible miscalculation, but also I think it was greedy in a position where you really should not be greedy at all. And yeah, the thing about taking the rook here is that after queen f4 check, okay, king h3 probably wins, but like if you go king g1, he goes queen d4 check, and he's actually better because he controls the b5 f1 diagonal. I have to go to h2, and then this rook falls. So I'm kind of lucky I even have bishop b4 here. Okay, one final game, and I'll hand you very nice, ladies and gentlemen, over to Jan for another session of flawless flagging. And I should rouse myself and hang on. I should rouse myself and play a good game of chess to run the session off. And I should pick somebody who will try to beat me. It's also a 3-minute game, which means less talking and more thinking. It's not going to be easy, but also I'm not sure he's still there. This challenge has been hanging there for a while, so I'm not sure if we'll get a game, because he may have given up on me signing up for this. I'm also losing my voice, and where is hydration bot where I need it? There's this new thing on Twitch where there's a bot in chat which tells you at random intervals just how much water you should have drank by this time in the stream. And I had a very large glass of water next to me all this time, and I haven't drank even a little bit out of it, which is stupid. This is not a particularly critical way of treating the briar, but it exists, and it's not altogether horrible. That's the most you can say about this system. It's not altogether horrible. I'm not sure about this, but if he goes knight g6, I still have bishop g3, and it's very difficult for him to continue chasing it around. I'm also hinting I will play knight f5 if he gives me a chance. So... And if you want to go very, very technical, there is a better reply to a3 in this position. If you want to study it from the black side, you should look to alternatives to bishop b7 in this position. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult to convince yourself knight f5 is bad in any kind of a Spanish position. Although he is probably prepared to play g6 next move, so maybe it's a bit of a waste here. Can I try and stop him from playing g6 next move? Once again, it's very much a battle of tempi, because if, let's say, if you imagine me playing rook a d1 here next move, I'm probably close to winning. But for instance, he has the move bishop c8 here, challenging my knight on f5, which probably means that we'll have to go back to d4. It's not horrible, but it will limit my... Whoops. That should have happened at some point in the stream. It always happens with me. Yeah, and this exists, and I saw this as a possibility, and I was kind of hoping I will not have to calculate this, because it's difficult. If I take on d6, unfortunately for me, the queen on d2 is hanging, so he is not forced to immediately take on d6 even. And if I take on b5, he has knight takes e4, which is what generally I would like to make work, but I don't think I can. I can also just pass on all this and play f3. Re-establishing the threat of knight takes b5. The big question here is whether he can go c4, bishop c2, d5. If this works for him, he will be doing fine. If it doesn't, I probably should have an advantage here. He can go queen b6 here. This move wasn't really worrying me a great deal, because it's not really very good for him strategically. I can even do this and reroute it to d4, which is a very, very good square. I'm not doing it to attack any of his... I mean, he obviously has queen b6 check. But now it's on the best square on the board, yeah. Once again, the big question is, as usual, whether he can play d5. I was hoping he couldn't, but maybe I was wrong. Rook takes e5 is the big question here. Knight takes e5 I think loses to bishop a4, at least I was hoping it does. Yeah, and we are actually getting an interesting game to finish the show off. At least. So I'm happy about that. I actually didn't give mate in 1 just now. I should resign. Rook g8 was mate in 1. Oh my god. Good grief. That would have been so glorious. Somebody actually asked me about this. During this banter, have I actually ever missed mate in 1? Rook g8 was mate in 1. On the other hand, if he plays f takes g6 here, rook f6, knight f6, he is worse but not lost. So yeah, and rook a8, bc3, was that working? I kind of briefly... Yeah, bc3 works here. I saw it existed, but I forgot the rook on e1 is hanging. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Whoever it was who pointed this out, the chat, yeah. bc3 here probably just wins for black. which is kind of regrettable. I saw the move existed, but I just thought I could take on e8 here, and what's the problem? But there is a problem. But in general, I mean, from here on out, I think it was an interesting game, and in general, it was a decent and well fought game, not well played game. You can't really call well played a game in which I missed mate in one and my opponent could have won a piece. But it was at least an exciting game, so I'm happy about that. All right, I'll hand you off to Jan with this, and I'll go stretch for about 15 minutes because my back is now completely killing me, but not much I can do about it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a accurate sag of a performance. I feel it's definitely been fun in patches, but it hasn't been of a particularly, it hasn't been smooth all the way, but there were high points definitely, and I enjoyed it, and as usual, I'm very grateful to chat for keeping me company and asking me questions and keeping me sane-ish in the process. And yeah, go watch Jan. Jan won't miss mates in one because he won't really be going for mating attacks. Alright guys, cheers. How do I stop this? Somehow.